I'm Rick Redmond with the Hilrick & Bradsby Company, makers of Louisville Slugger, the greatest bats in the world and the official bat of Major League Baseball. We thank you for being with us on this special occasion this morning as we commemorate the site where Bud Hilrick made the very first Louisville Slugger bat for Pete Browning 133 years ago. And we're pleased to see Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory's version of Bud and Pete joining us here this morning for this very special occasion. And I want you guys to be sure to stick around because we got a little work for you to do here in a few minutes. We'd like to welcome this morning Mayor Greg Fisher, our friends from the Kentucky Historical Society who were instrumental in getting this historical marker placed, our friends from the Aloft Hotel, members of the Hilrick family, and our other distinguished guests. Few people know more about our city's incredible history in America's pastime than our first speaker. As a matter of fact, she's even written a book about it. It's my honor to introduce H&B Vice President and the Executive Director of Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, Ann Jewell, who also happens to know a little bit about Louisville Slugger bats.
Thanks, Rick. In 1884, Bud Hilrick was 17 years old. He was an apprentice in his father's woodworking shop right behind us here. And lucky for Louisville, he was also a big baseball fan. He skipped work one day to go root for our hometown's pro baseball team, the Louisville Eclipse. One of baseball's greatest hitters played for the Eclipse, and Pete Browning was known as the Louisville Slugger. He broke his bat that day, and Bud offered to make him a new one. Browning took a chance on the teenager and got several hits the next day with the Hilrick bat. That's how the Louisville Slugger story started 133 years ago, and new chapters are still being written today with hits and home runs by baseball's greatest. Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory is proud to sponsor this historic marker where Bud Hilrick himself would have seen it every day as he came and went from his family's woodworking shop. 7 blocks away, the towering 120-foot bat outside of Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory has Bud Hilrick's signature on it for a reason. And it all began here with Bud batting leadoff. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Ann. This marker wouldn't be possible without the support of the Kentucky Historical Society. It is marker number 2,499 across the Commonwealth. Man, one more and we'd have been 2,500. Here with more about the Kentucky Historical Marker Program is Emily Lazan with the Kentucky Historical Society. Emily?
Good morning. First, I just want to thank everyone for coming out today. I want to thank you for your support of local history and the Historical Marker Program. Local history is important to the community, it's important to our Commonwealth, and our Historical Marker Program is one of our most popular programs. As mentioned, we have dedicated almost 2,500 markers in the 49 years this program has been in operation. A lot of them are in Louisville, so it's really great to be here today and excited to be here. Louisville Slugger is an institution. It's a pillar of the community. I remember touring the factory when I was 7 or 8, and I got my own mini bat, and I took it home. I still have it today. My 4-year-old now has one that he carries around the house. He uses it as a sword because he thinks he's a pirate, but he's got one, and it's a family tradition now, and so it's exciting to be here to present this to such a pillar of the community. We're happy to be here. The local history program, we have several other things we can do. The apps, we have a Explore KY History smartphone app that lets you find all of the markers throughout the state, and it gives you more information and more background. Sometimes it throws videos and pictures at you, so if you're interested in that or you want to learn more about the Historic Marker Program, there is an app for that. And we also have the Local History Trust Fund, which is a state-driven tax fund where we manage tax funds that come out of donations from tax refunds, and we use them as small grants to help small local organizations get funding for any kind of project they can come up with history-wise, whether it's a conservation project or a collecting project, anything like that. There's all information on that on our website, kyhistory.gov. And again, really excited to be here, and thank you all for having us.
Thank you, Emily. You know, the name Hilrick is royalty in the game of baseball. Really, it is. Arguably, no other family has had more impact on baseball than Louisville's very own Hilrick family. Think about it, from T-ball through the youth leagues to high school and college and the pros, both the minor and major leagues. Every player at one time or another, and probably most of the time, has hit with a Louisville Slugger bat. Representing baseball's royal family is Brian Hilrick, professional bat production manager for H&B and the great-grandson of Bud Hilrick, who made that very first Louisville Slugger bat on this site in 1884. Brian?
Good morning. For 133 years and 4 generations, the Hilrick family has been proud to make the Louisville Slugger. We are honored to have this historical marker in the location of the original factory and to commemorate the birthplace of the Louisville legend. In our museum, and as this photo shows, it is a photo of the old factory of my great-grandfather Bud, his father John Frederick, and some of the workers as it stood in the 1890s. In the photo, Bud and some of the workers are holding bats while others have woodworking tools in their hands. There are even a few butter churns in the photo too. I sometimes wonder if my great-grandfather ever imagined that a piece of wood he handcrafted into a bat would it be the start of the greatest baseball bat company in the world. Today we honor this heritage Bud created by crafting the highest quality bat for everyone from the little leaguer to the veteran professional. In the words of my Uncle Jack, here's to another 100 years.
Thank you, Brian. We're fortunate in our city to have a mayor who not only loves Louisville, but also loves baseball and our city's great history in America's pastime. So I'm honored to introduce Louisville's first fan of baseball, Mayor Greg Fisher.
Well, thank you so much. And yes, I do love the Louisville Slugger. When you think about the renaissance that's going on in our city with tourism, with $10 billion of capital construction, and why people like to live in our city or come to our city is because of the authenticity that they find here in Louisville. And I don't know if there's anything more authentic. Maybe the Ohio River would be first, and then after that would be the Louisville Slugger. And people are so delighted when they cruise down Main Street and see that big baseball bat. It brings a smile to everybody's face because, as mentioned, everybody's had some kind of personal connection with the Louisville Slugger at some point in their time. And then when we can dig deeper as Louisvillians and really understand the H&B story, and most of us all know the Hilricks, and when we think about really how, Jack, you and your team, really one of the original pioneers of the revitalization of Main Street, because when you take the factory and corporate headquarters and think about the adaptive reuse that they did to really, which was just a basic warehouse at that point in time, and turned it into a beautiful structure. At that time, people didn't even know what an adaptive reuse was. But our friends at H&B did that in such a wonderful, creative way that it really then led the way for more development on Main Street. And of course, Main Street, as we know right now, is one of the great streets in the country and is continuing to evolve that way. So H&B has touched our city in so many different ways, from the Slugger, from baseball to philanthropy to creativity and to quality management as well. One of the leaders in our city in the use of total quality principles, the principles of Dr. Edwards Deming, has been H&B. And that is at the core of any great company, and that's why H&B is one of truly the great companies in our country. So we're really proud to have you all here in Louisville and want to celebrate this day, and I want to celebrate this marker from the Historical Society, because as you see tourists walking around town right now, they stop and they read these things and they go home and say, let me tell you what's different about Louisville. Could be our baseball bats, could be our bourbon, it could be our horses, but we innovate throughout all these sectors. So I want to say thanks to H&B and the whole Slugger team. Jack and John, come on up here. Brian, anybody from the Hilrick family, anybody else here? We've got a bunch of Hilricks here in Louisville. See, you know, when we say they're royalty, they get embarrassed. You know, here they're just the Hilricks. You know, but this is the city once again honoring the Hilrick family and Louisville Slugger on the unveiling of the state marker for the first home of great-grandfather Bud. Louisville has a proud history of sports, including Muhammad Ali, the Kentucky Derby, Pee Wee Reese, and many others. But the Slugger remains a historical big hitter for our community. So a proud city cheers the unveiling of this marker, which commemorates a truly significant location and a great family here in our shared history of Louisville. So thank you all so much for the wonderful stuff that you do. God bless y'all.
From the very first bat that was made here 133 years ago to more than 100 million bats now spread around the globe, please do the honors.